Hey there, music fans! What if I told you that behind the catchy tunes of Creedence Clearwater Revival, one of the greatest rock bands of all time, lies a story of friendship, betrayal, and a battle for control that tore it all apart? That's right. Today, we're diving deep into the untold drama of CCR, straight from the words of bassist Stu Cook, who's finally breaking his silence after decades. This is a tale of hit songs, broken bonds, and a leader whose genius came at a cost. Stick with me until the end, because you won't believe how this iconic band unraveled, and trust me, you don't want to miss a single moment of this wild ride. Picture this, it's the late 1960s, and Creedence Clearwater Revival bursts onto the music scene like a bolt of lightning. Their music is raw, catchy, and unlike anything else out there. Songs like Proud Mary and Bad Moon Rising are climbing the charts, and fans can't get enough of their swampy southern rock sound. At the heart of it all is John Fogerty, lead singer, guitarist, and the creative mastermind behind the band. He's writing songs that capture the spirit of a generation, speaking to the struggles of America's youth during the Vietnam War era. But here's the thing, while the world sees CR as a tight-knit group of friends making music that defines an era, behind the scenes, things are starting to crack. And now, thanks to Stu Cook's recent interview, we're getting a front-row seat to the drama that changed everything. Let's rewind to 1968, when CCR releases their first album. They're just a group of high school buddies from California. John Fogerty, his older brother Tom on rhythm guitar, Stu Cook on bass, and Doug Clifford on drums. They've been playing together for years, dreaming of making it big. And when their first album drops, it's clear they're onto something special. John's songwriting is the spark that sets them apart. His lyrics are sharp, his melodies are infectious, and his vision for the band is crystal clear. He doesn't just write the songs, he decides how they should sound, picks the album artwork, and even shapes the band's image to the outside world. This is a band firing on all cylinders. But according to Stu Cook, John's leadership wasn't just strong, it was suffocating. Stu, now 79 years old, is finally opening up about what it was like to be in CCR during those early days. In his recent interview, he describes John as a guy with a vision so intense, it left little room for anyone else. John had a clear idea of what CCR should be, Stu says, but it wasn't just his vision, he wanted to control every single decision. From the sound of a guitar riff to the design of an album cover, John called the shots. For a while, the band went along with it. After all, they were becoming superstars. Their songs were on the radio, their concerts were selling out, and they were living the rock and roll dream. But beneath the surface, John's need for control was starting to create tension. By 1970, CCR is at the peak of their fame. They're filling stadiums, pumping out hits like Fortunate Son and Who'll Stop the Rain, and their music is everywhere. But behind closed doors, things are falling apart. John's perfectionism is driving the band to exhaustion. Hours in the studio, redoing take after take, just to get a single note exactly how he wants. It's wearing everyone down. Stu remembers those days vividly. We had been friends since high school, he says, but John wanted to take over everything. If we had ideas of our own, he'd argue with us. Eventually, it felt like our input didn't matter anymore. What started as a group effort was starting to feel like a one-man show, and the rest of the band was struggling to keep up. But tension wasn't just about music, it was personal. John's older brother, Tom Fogerty, was feeling especially sidelined. As the rhythm guitarist, Tom had been a key part of the band's sound, but he was tired of living in John's shadow. Stu and Doug, the rhythm section, were also frustrated. They'd been with John since the beginning, but now they felt like backup musicians instead of equal partners. The band's success was holding them together, but just barely. And then, in 1971, everything changed. Tom Fogerty had had enough. Feeling pushed out and ignored, he quit the band. His exit was a huge blow. CCR wasn't just losing a guitarist. They were losing a brother, a friend, and a piece of their soul. It was the beginning of the end. With Tom gone, CCR tried to carry on as a trio, but the cracks were impossible to ignore. John, Stu, and Doug were barely speaking, and the creative process was a mess. John was still calling all the shots, but the magic that had made CCR so special was fading. By 1972, the band was working on their final album, Mardi Gras. John had a new idea. Instead of him writing all the songs, each member would contribute their own tracks and even sing lead. On paper, it sounded like a chance for Stu and Doug to step up and show what they could do. But in reality, it was a disaster waiting to happen. Stu Cook believes Mardi Gras was John's way of proving a point. John wanted to show that we couldn't make it without him, Stu says. If the album didn't do well, it would prove he was the reason for our success. For years, Stu and Doug had been playing supporting roles, backing John's vision. Now they were being asked to write and sing lead on an album, something they'd never done before. It was a huge challenge, and they weren't ready for it. The album was a mess. Critics called it uneven and a major letdown compared to CCR's earlier work. Fans didn't know what to make of it either. Mardi Gras became a symbol of just how broken the band had become. The failure of Mardi Gras was the final nail in the coffin for CCR. By the end of 1972, the band was done. But the breakup wasn't clean or simple, it was ugly. The friendships that had held CCR together for so long were shattered. John cut off contact with Stu and Doug, and soon the former bandmates were fighting in court. Lawsuits over money, royalties, and the rights to CCR's music dragged on for years. What had once been a group of high school friends chasing a dream was now a bitter feud, with each side pointing fingers at the other. For fans, it was heartbreaking to see a band that had meant so much reduced to courtroom battles and bad blood, while John Fogerty went on to build a successful solo career, releasing albums like Blue Moon Swamp and even winning a Grammy. Stu and Doug tried to keep the CCR spirit alive. In the 1990s, they formed Creedence Clearwater Revisited, a band that toured playing the classic CCR songs they'd helped create, but even that caused more drama. John wasn't happy about his former bandmates performing without him, and more legal battles followed. For years, the wounds from CCR's breakup refused to heal. John stayed distant, refusing to reconcile with Stu and Doug. Even when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993, the scars of their falling out were just too deep. Now, decades later, Stu Cook is finally telling his side of the story. At 79, he's had time to reflect on what happened, and his words paint a picture of a band torn apart by one man's need for control. "I don't deny that John is incredibly talented," Stu says. "But he was difficult in his behavior. Destroyed what we had as a band. It's a shame, but it's the truth." Stu's not trying to rewrite history or take away from John's genius. He's just being honest about the cost of that genius, the friendships lost, the trust broken, and the band that could have been so much more. So, was John Fogerty a musical genius or a controlling leader who broke his own band? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. There's no denying that John's songwriting and vision were the heart of CCR's success. Songs like Fortunate Son and Proud Mary are still played everywhere on classic rock stations and movies, and on streaming platforms. They're timeless, capturing the raw energy of an era and speaking to new generations of fans. John's ability to blend swamp rock, blues, and country into something uniquely CCR made them one of the biggest bands of their time. But Stu's story reminds us that genius often comes with a price. John's need to control every detail, to make every decision, turned a partnership into a power struggle. For Stu, the story of CCR isn't just about the music, it's about friendship, ambition, and what happens when creative visions clash. He and Doug Clifford were there from the start, laying down the bass lines and drum beats that gave CCR's songs their groove. They weren't just hired musicians, they were John's friends, his partners, but by the end, they felt like they didn't matter. Stu's reflections show us the human side of CCR's story, the side that's often overshadowed by the hit songs and the mythology of rock and roll. It's a story of what might have been if things had gone differently. If John had been willing to share the spotlight. As fans, it's easy to get lost in the nostalgia of CCR's music. Those songs take us back to a time when rock and roll was raw and real, when a band could capture the spirit of a generation with a 3-minute song. But Stu Cook's story reminds us that behind every great band, there's a human story, one of triumphs and mistakes, of dreams and disappointments. CCR's legacy is complicated, a mix of incredible music and painful fallout. Their songs will live forever, but the scars of their breakup are a reminder that even the greatest bands are made up of people, and people can break. Looking back, it's clear that CCR was something special. They weren't just a band, they were a moment in time. Their music spoke to the struggles of the late 1960s and early 1970s, from the Vietnam War to the disillusionment of a generation. John Fogerty's lyrics were like a mirror, reflecting the hopes and fears of young people across America. But the band's story is also a cautionary tale about what happens when one person's vision overshadows everyone else's. Stu Cook's words give us a chance to see CCR not just as legends, but as real people who laughed together, fought together, and ultimately drifted apart. Today, CCR's music is still everywhere. You can't turn on a classic rock station without hearing Sweet Hitchhiker or Green River. Their songs are in movies, commercials, and playlists, loved by everyone from boomers to Gen Z, but the band's story is a reminder that success doesn't always mean happiness. For every hit song, there was a fight, a disagreement, a moment when the band's future hung in the balance. Stu Cook's honesty pulls back the curtain on that reality, showing us the cost of creating something timeless. As we wrap up this deep dive into CCR's story, I hope you've enjoyed hearing Stu Cook's side of things. It's not every day we get to hear from someone who was there, living through the highs and lows of one of rock's greatest bands. If you loved this video, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with your friends. And if you want more stories about the music and drama behind your favorite bands, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite CCR song and did Stu's story change how you see the band? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.